with that said, I'm going to jump here into Personal Compass, page 6. We're going to workshop on this. So what is going to happen at the workshop, we have a Compass workshop later this morning. You're going to choose if you want to work as a workshop on the Personal Compass, focusing on yourself and putting this into place, or focus on your company compass. So we'll end up breaking into different rooms, and you'll choose which one you want to work on, and then we'll do some, it's big boards you'll work on this with, and do some review with some teammates, some peers. So you'll be choosing between what we talked about earlier, laying out the strategy and purpose and mission and direction of your organization, versus building out your personal compass. And what I encourage you to do is, first step is doing this for yourself. Then next would be rolling this into your entire organization. And for all of you who are members, we are rolling out to you guys by the end of the month the eestools.com, our technology, to manage your organization. And all of this is built in there. So every person, when they log in, they'll have their own personal compass. Makes it really easy for them to actually put this into action. So the personal compass is built around this concept of what we call the 8 F's of life, which are faith, family, friends, fitness, finance, fun, and fulfillment. And I believe we all have these 8 different components of our life. And a great article came out a couple days ago by Jeff Bezos that I read. And somebody interviewed Jeff Bezos, and he said he thinks work-life balance is a debilitating term, because that makes you think that there's some clear trade-off between work and life. And what we've been saying at DLP for many years is it's about work-life integration. One of our core values and big focus, and a whole chapter of the book, is on living fully, which is about this concept of achieving success in all 8 of these areas at the same time. And Jeff Bezos calls it the circle, is how he thinks about it. And you need to be thinking about it all together. It's not a trade-off one or the other. You don't have to anymore. It was different 30 years ago, right? It was harder 30 years ago. Right, for our parents or grandparents, right? If they wanted to get ahead in their career, they had to be at the office, right? They had to be there late. There was no internet, no bringing work home. There was no other option, right? We can integrate it all together. I think of it as I think of my life and how and I'll show you my schedule. I think of when I spend my time. I think of any time I can spend where I can be doing 4 of these, improving and working on goals towards 4 of these at the same time. That's a home run. Think of it like a baseball term, right? If I'm only working on one of these things, that's a single. If I'm working on 4 of these on any time, that's a home run. And I do it all the time, this whole week, right? All these events that we do, just so you guys know, these are my personal, where I go and I spend time with my family during these times. I do the March event over spring break where I go and spend in St. Simon's, and my family's there, right? At the start of this weekend, a bunch of our leaders and some of our closest leaders and their families all joined us, and we spent weekend doing 4th of July activities and fun stuff together, in between doing, company meetings, right? And we're doing those activities while we're playing basketball with our kids and out on hikes, working on our, fitness at the same time, right? We built in our organization, my leaders and reports are friends of mine. We built deep friendships and built friendships with their wives and children and so forth, right? So this integration of being able to work on and achieve the goals you set in these different areas of your life at the same time, that's what success is, right? Being fat and unhappy and in a bad marriage, but having your business take off, that's not happiness. That's not success, right? Who wants that, right? I'm in groups, and Chris Ryan, I don't know if he's in the room right now, but Chris, has run a bunch of like Tiger 21 groups for a lot of years, and Peter here's in Tiger 21, and Tiger 21 in our group, in groups I've been in, many billionaires, right? And a lot of these guys are in their 60s and 70s, and they're unhappy, right? And they're miserable. They're stressing about their investments. They have nothing better to worry about. They're unhappy. Their wife doesn't like them. They don't like their wife anymore. Their kids are lazy and unmotivated, right? They're having health issues, right? That's more common than not common for even people who are really, really successful in terms of their business, right? That's not real success. That shouldn't be what any of us want, and it's not what we have to choose anymore. But it takes more than it takes time. It takes thought of saying, how do I build my life around all of these areas at the same time? And it doesn't take a lot of time and effort to do so in the scheme of things. So this tool called the Personal Compass will give you the actual kind of, it'll be in the technology, but we can give you the actual kind of working document on this as well. But we have it printed out here on page 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, it goes all the way to 15, all the different components of the personal compass here in your workbooks. So it starts off here with, and they'll go over this a bit if you choose to workshop on the personal compass this afternoon. We'll go through all this in a bit more detail, and you're also going to get a copy of my personal compass, because not only do I want to make sure that I clearly know what my personal compass is and what I want to accomplish in life and what's important to me, I want my wife to know that. And we have a tool as well called a family compass that we're going to be teaching to the prosperity group. But I want everybody around me, everybody who's important to me, everybody to know what's important to me, because I want the people close to me to help me get there and understand it and understand why what I'm focusing my time on help me in achieving it. So, and it provides great accountability as well. So you guys will all have a copy of mine. So we start off with, similar to a company compass, is what are your personal core values? And as leaders of our companies, a secret is probably your core values in your company are pretty similar to those of you personally because you develop them in your company, right? So mine aren't exactly the same, but GRIT is servant leadership, be present, enjoy the moment, and treasure your time. Life on this earth is short. And that's an example of what I talked about earlier, of every core value needs a description of what that means to you, right? Pray together and play together. We pray together and we enjoy life together. That's a core value for me and my family. Your family mission statement. Your family mission statement is your unified representation of what's important to your family. Mine is, we honor the Lord through our faith and service. We choose to be kind, to be curious, to be happy, to love one another, and to have an attitude of gratitude. You can read the rest. And for me, because my kids are young, my wife and I developed that together. My kids didn't have much of an impact yet in it, but maybe when they're older, it'll change a little bit, maybe not. But my kids know it, and we talk about it, and it doesn't mean everything to them at 8 and 9, but we know that it embodies how we want to grow our family. Personal mission statement. This is really critical. How many of you have a personal mission statement? Okay, handful of you, good. So very few do. Think about that. More often we have them in our business, but we haven't developed a mission for our lives. So mine is, I will grow as a servant leader, leveraging my strengths to purposely, passionately, relentlessly pursue God-sized goals and make an impact on these 4 impacts I'll talk about tonight, while being the best father and husband I can be. My big, hairy, audacious goal for my family, which I will achieve shortly, but it's a big deal for me because I'm going to take off for a year. So we spent a lot of time on this as a leadership team a couple days ago. In 22 months, I'm going to travel the world for a year. I won't be in the office for a year. Right? So that's a really important date that I got to have everybody in my world understanding, because I got to have leaders in place and things be able to keep growing, because we're not stopping growing DLP. I'm not saying, hey, everybody, the compass and the plans and everything we've been doing all these years, we're going to pause that for a year while I go and have some fun, right? We're going to keep moving forward, but that's going to be a big deal. What do you want to be remembered for? What do you want people to remember you? That's a big question. And this is a big deal to me because as you grow in your success, right, more and more people are patting me on the back all the time, right? And that's not what's important, right? I want to be most famous in my own home, right? That's a big deal to me, right? Is being famous to everybody else and being important in other people's eyes is not that important, right? Being famous in my home to my children, them knowing me, is important, right? I want to be remembered as a great servant leader and make a significant impact again on these 4 crises. Your faith statement. Mine is, we are passionate about knowing God and growing in our relationships with Jesus Christ. We give ourselves to serve the Lord. Verse of the year. Mine is, and mine has been this for a while. As for me and my family, we serve the Lord. And then we set, similar to a professional, your company compass, what are our 3 non-negotiable goals for the next 3 years? We're adopting right now. That's one of our goals. One of mine for every year is I travel 12 weekend trips with my family and 12 full weeks of travel each year. So your inner circle, who's your inner circle? Who's most important to you? Who do you want to be around your bed when your time comes, right? So I have my family and my friends. I have my board, mentors, coaches. These are kind of my 3 tribes, friends, family, and my you can call it what you want, but board, inner circle, whatever you want to call it. My strengths and weaknesses. So this is not for you, just in running your business, but what are your strengths and weaknesses? I went through a Strength Finder exercise, so mine came right from that. If you've ever done that before, it's a cool exercise to go through. So mine come back as achiever, significance, self-assurance, competition, focus, leadership, grit. My weakness is too many priorities. I struggle at times holding people accountable, being too nice, intentionality in relationship building, intentionality in showing appreciation. Much as I just gave you guys a talk 30 minutes ago on how important it is to show appreciation to your people, I have to put discipline into my life to make that happen because I don't naturally do it. I just expect everybody to do their job, and that doing their job well should be enough appreciation, right? I don't need to do a job. I'm doing lots of things good, right? Why do I need to tell you? That's where my natural inclination is. I'm not going to tell you every time you do something good. I'll tell you when you didn't do something good, right? But I have to remind myself, right? I make myself go and write out cards. Every day I send 2 people a note of appreciation. That's part of my morning routine, right? 2 people every day. I send them a note. Usually it's an email where I say, hey, I just want to let you know I'm thinking about you. I really appreciate, what you did here or what you've done in my life or whatever. I get to impact in a really positive way 2 people every day from a simple, takes me 10 minutes, right, every day. I list out what am I going to start doing, what do I need to start doing, what do I need to stop doing, my personal quarterly rocks. What's my 20%? What's the 20% of my time that's most impactful? Right? This is what the 20-mile march is about, figuring out what things you do are most impactful, making sure you don't make any excuses not to do them. And this will play into my schedule. So the things that I do that are most impactful is making big moves. So, that means a lot of things for us. I can get into that, but making, big moves, acquisitions, companies, things like that. Hiring, strategy, product development, and innovation, and leadership development. Those are the 5 things that are most critical that I spend my time on, and that's where most of my time needs to be spent then. And then my top 4% of most impactful time that I do is hiring A players, relationship development, and telling our story. And then I go and lay out, kind of unlike your business, I try to think even longer term. I plan to live to 150. So I'm planning long term here, but what are my goals for the next 5 years around different components of life, 20 years and 100 years? How am I checkpointing my success over long term? And then you get into kind of where the rubber meets the road. So once you figure out, all right, what's my mission, what's important, what's my driving focus, how do you go about then making sure you're actually spending your time on those things? So for me, I have a lot of habits and rituals I do every day. I have a 5:30 a.m. miracle morning. We have the man himself who invented the miracle morning doing it with us tomorrow, Hal Elrod. I've been doing that for 10 years. Mine is, I read the Bible, I pray, I meditate, I journal, I work out while I listen to a book. That's what I do each morning, at least 6 days a week. 5:30 p.m. most nights. I give myself Thursday off, but the other weekdays I'm home by 5:30. Either I'm taking my kids to sports. I coach all my kids' sports, head coach all my kids' sports. I make that a priority. And then, dinner and attitude of gratitude and prayer time with my kids. We talk about our accomplishments, our wins of the day. These are, rituals that I've built. We do every day. Almost every single day I have a daily alignment meeting with one of my leaders. So I do that at 7 a.m. So some of us did this morning walking around. My routine is at 5:30 I get up, I do all this, I get ready, I see my kids, spend a couple minutes with my wife, and then I start walking to work. I walk to work most days, and I'm on an alignment meeting with one of my leaders. That's what I do every morning. Make sure it actually happens, and I do it, every day. I get both, again, talking about, home runs, right? I'm talking to one of my leaders, building relationships, I'm getting exercise, I'm having time outside of nature, which fulfills me. I'm doing multiple things at the same time. Appreciation and artifacts, it's hard to explain, but showing appreciation, I gave you one example of that. 30 minutes of outdoor time in motion every day. I believe strongly for both mental and physical health, just motion is really critical, movement. So I spend usually a couple hours every day. It's one of the reasons I have a hard time being in Florida in the summer because it's so hot being outside, and when I come here, I like being outside and moving. Every night I do reflections and journaling, and we give you guys all the journal I use and we all use that we've developed to do all this, and I prepare for the next day. And so that's what I do every day, and then you see some of my weekly targets that I do each week. And then I got monthly habits. I do twice a month date night. I pre-schedule those. I have a babysitter lined up twice a month. And then once a quarter, I do Carla Day, which is usually a day and a half. That's my wife's name. And I take the whole day off of work. Usually it's a Friday. Usually it's an overnight trip. And we do that at least every quarter. I want to get to the point of being able to do that monthly, but right now I do that every quarter. Just simple habits that you put in place. The power of having twice a month date night with your wife or husband is incredibly powerful. It keeps a lot of things from going wrong by having that focus time. Do you still end up spending most of your time when you have young kids talking about your kids? Sure. But it's still powerful time with no distractions, right? So you can see, one-on-one time with my kids. I use every quarter I do. You see it over here on the annual basis, I think. I guess I have it over here on the monthly. But every quarter I do Jim Shields' 18 Summers concept of family board meetings. We do that every quarter, which is we do it at basically 5 hours, one-on-one time with each of my kids. So I take one kid. It's easy with two. My wife takes the other. And then the next day we alternate. We do that every quarter. It's incredibly powerful. We've been doing that every quarter for, I think, 6 or 7 quarters now. And it's awesome. Sometimes we'd even do it more often than quarterly because we get so much value out of it. And then I have certain habits I built around where I spend my holidays and what I do for overall kind of travel basis. So, but just it's making the decision that these things are important, building them into your overall schedule. So last couple items on here, I set my perfect life numbers, and these will change over time, but specific goals that allow me to lead, my perfect life, perfect for me. You figure out whatever those mean to you. And then this last kind of big part here is we call the Living Fully dashboard, and we're going to kind of move into this to wrap up here before we get to meetings, but this is something that comes out of assessing where your life is today, setting goals, and a Living Fully dashboard are what are your goals, your 8 to 10 goals for the next year. So these are my goals for this year. And I'm a person of numbers. I like to weight my goals, so I say how important each one is. And then I score myself every month on how I'm doing on these goals. All right, so I have goals around my foundation. I have goals around impactful moments and time with my kids. I have goals around acquiring a bank. I have fitness goals. I have goals around travel, fun activities, hitting 90% A players in all of our leadership seats. I'm not there yet, but I'm making progress, right? My 2 times a month date nights, right? What are my most important goals? That if I do all these things, I had an incredible year, right? It doesn't kind of matter all the other stuff. There's lots of other stuff, right? But if I achieve these things, I crushed it this year, right? And then this is my schedule. Actually, no, this is Rich Delgado's schedule. So it's an example of his. He's one of our managing directors. And so not all, but most of our team members do this. And he's got a very regimented, similar schedule. Here's mine. It's probably a little hard to read, but we'll give these to you as well. It's part of my personal compass, so we'll hand you my schedule as well. But, I go through and I spend Mondays. It's hard to read, but Mondays is meetings. So that's the rhythm I found. And I was talking to Clayton earlier. I'm still heavily involved in running meetings and running operations in my organization. But right now, with where I'm at, it's important time for me to do. The pressure I put. So, each of these L10 meetings, which you'll hear about next, is a focused meeting on a different area. So basically, I'm working on each function area or each business unit in a monthly focused issue-solving meeting once a month. When you have 20 functions and companies, that turns into a lot of meetings, right? But that's an hour and a half or so of focused time that I'm working with that leadership team on whatever's most important to them. Daily huddles, and we'll cover the whole meeting schedule in a moment. But you'll see, I have in my schedule what time I'm walking home, what time I'm having dinner with my family. I allow myself to travel 1 day a week, which is Tuesdays. Bedtime with my kids. I spend time with my wife after my kids go to bed every night. My PM routine, what time I get to bed. And that's, for some of us, the hardest part is getting to bed, right? I used to have my day start at 5, but I just can't get myself bed early enough to get a good night's sleep, so I pushed back to 5:30. So you'll find rhythms that work for you. Getting to bed was a hard thing because I wasn't going to cut down on my kid time. I wasn't going to cut down on my wife time. My kids get older, they're staying up a little later too, which makes it a little harder, right? So I couldn't get to bed early enough. So I adjusted a bit, and it'll change with seasons of life. I have specific weekend schedules. I only work up until midday on Saturday if I don't coach that day, and the rest of the weekend I'm spending with family. Other than I still do my PM routine after my kids go to bed. I'll still spend time in the morning before they get up, but I'm focused on family the rest of that time. Sometimes that's family like this, right? They're here, right? Sunday I'm not joining any of you for golf or Biltmore. I've done that Biltmore a lot of times. I'm going to spend it with my family on Sunday. That's my routine here. My Saturday will be a little off because I'm doing this, but for the most part, this is my schedule week in and week out. Even when I'm in different places, I follow these rhythms. So my number one time I spend today is on hiring leaders. Number two is on develop of leaders. That'll flip-flop as I fill some of these last seats. But then I'm running operational meetings. I'm involved in day-to-days. I'm involved in acquisitions. I still approve every acquisition. I still approve every loan today. So I'm involved in a lot of day-to-day decisioning, spending time on sourcing deals, sourcing capital. Of course, I work with investors, doing presentations. I mean, I can give you guys kind of an overview of how I break it out, but this is the actual schedule. And because I have it set up, I have an assistant who helps me manage it, but it happens because it's in my schedule. I have the time that I'm not working in the schedule as well, right? Time can't get booked on my schedule. I can't overlap my date night because it's on my schedule. You can't book it. It's booked already, right? It's not. This stuff is simple stuff. I'm not the first to say these things, right? But it's just put it into action. It's just a decision to what's really important. And the reality is, most times when we're growing our business, what's really important to us is our business, and we don't really value everything else at different points in our growth. And that's why you're willing to replace other things, right? So the concept here is figuring out how you can integrate these things, right? I spend my weekend workouts are with my kids almost always, right? Do I get a better workout if my kids aren't in the gym? Yes. But is it more fun and enjoyable when they are there? And do I get to spend some time? Yes, it's great, right? So you make those balances, right? I could tell my kids, no, don't come in the gym. Go stay in the house. 'Cause I'd rather be listening. I would need to listen to my headphones, and I'm listening to a book, right? You adjust as stuff comes up. But when you have that mindset of saying, hey, these are what my goals are for the year, back here, right? So if I can look at every minute of my time should be moving the ball in one of these areas, right? So if I can feel confident that I'm moving the ball in one of these areas, and I go and I've said to myself, and I value my time at $10,000 an hour. I encourage you to come up with what's the value to your time. Set it bigger than what it really is today, maybe at what you're generating, but what's the value of your time? And if that time is not, if what I'm spending time on isn't generating that kind of value on it, I don't do it. And my wife, maybe an hour or 2 or 3 a month, she squeezes stuff into my schedule that I don't value and I don't want to do. But otherwise, I'm doing things that are valuable in one of these areas. And sometimes it's things that are valuable to my wife, which means it's valuable to me, right? If you care about your marriage and your relationship, right, investing in things that are important to your significant other is valuable time, right? Because all of this stuff will be meaningless if my wife divorces me, right? That's going to throw all this out of whack, right? Looking at it as a whole allows you to get better perspective, and that's the goal of the personal compass: is looking at your life as a whole, so you can get it all aligned. And it's amazing how little tiny changes to how you spend minutes of the day or hours of a week or a month can dramatically change the not only the actual success you have in your life, but I think so much about happiness and success is about your perception of your life than what reality is, right? And so if I say these are my biggest goals and I'm achieving them, I'm feeling happy about them, or if I'm moving towards them, making progress, right? I don't have on there, it's an easy example to pick, but you'll notice on my goals, for the year and otherwise, I don't have improved my golf game. It's not on there. I'm not saying anything wrong with it, but it's not a goal of mine, right? So I don't feel bad that I don't ever go out and golf. That's not a priority to me, right? It's not a goal I've set for myself. If it is a goal I set for myself and I don't go and do it, I might feel bad about it, right? I might be feeling off because I for the 3rd week in a row, I couldn't get out there and play my Saturday morning golf, right? That might throw me off if that's a top priority for me. That's not a priority for me. So if I'm moving the ball on all the things that are priorities to me, I'm succeeding. Those might not be the same priorities for somebody else. All right, so that's the personal compass. We'll open it up here for questions. And again, it comes back to this. And I encourage you to use the thinking of any time you can spend that you're hitting on 4 of these at the same time, that's a home run. And think about your time that way. That's why, and a lot of our leaders do it. You'll notice here at this event, I'd say 75% of our leaders here, not everyone can for various reasons, have their families here at this event, right? We encourage that. We allow that. Yeah, turn this into a vacation with your family, right? A lot of them got here early and they've been out, hiking and zip lining and all kinds of stuff with their family. And now they're, digging in and doing work here, but their family's here and they're having fun and they're connecting with the families of our other team members. And, that makes life a lot more enriching when you can integrate these areas together. So I'll open it up.
What's the travel day, Don? What Tuesday you said is a travel day. What is that exactly?
Oh, so that's the day I travel. So that's the day I'll go travel to acquisitions. It's the day I generally have a number of the meeting groups I'm in, like Tiger 21. So it's the day that I'm out of the office and I'm traveling, and usually I'm home late then because I'm flying. For me, most of the time that's flying. So that's the day I do my travel. Every now and then it varies, but almost always I book it on Tuesday, and I go pretty much every Tuesday. So travel that I need to do, revolves around fitting it into Tuesday. And those are choices. So for me, at this point in my life and where I'm in my career, I rarely ever travel without my family overnight. So that's just where I'm at and how I think. So almost always I travel and come back the same night. So even when I'm going anywhere, you develop different tools. For years I had a driver, and I still do, who drives me when it's local stuff. And then a year and a half or so ago, I bought a plane and to facilitate that now. So as your career and your business and priorities change, you put tools in place that help you do this.
I guess I'm trying to find a way to feel better. Did you? Was this at the beginning for you that way?
So
I'm struggling.
So the concept of this, and the concept of which we're not going to have time to fully go through here today, of a life assessment, which we have big whiteboard things for you to fill out and do this, which is a way to assess your life today against these 8 F's. So we have a bunch of questions here, which we'll give you this board to workshop on later, where he says, family, I'm spending at least 10 hours of focused time with my family each week. And you rate yourself from a 1 to a 5. I'm actively engaging, learning how to be a better spouse, parent, son, or daughter, right? And you can change the question. This is you're assessing your own life, what you think is important. But these are kind of, generally accepted, things, right? I do physical workouts at least 3 days a week, right? So you evaluate yourself across these 8 F's, and then it gives you a score. And then we map it out in like a web like this, where it shows you if one thing is way out of whack, then you need to put some more focus there, right? So the goal of this next activity, which I'm going to answer your question, is assess where you're at today, because the odds are if I just tell you to go set goals, you're going to set goals around the things you're already doing well. That's why you're doing them well, because those are the things you prioritize, right? But if you first assess where I'm at today, then it helps you put focus around the things you're not doing as well, right? So this is a simple tool to help you do that. And then what we encourage you to do is go set goals around each area. So you just think really big, and you say, hey, and you forget about any restrictions, any limitations, and you just write big goals, and you want to write in the first person and that you're doing it. I am, phenomenal father. I am spending, X amount of time with my kids. I am, married to my wife for 40 years. Whatever, right? Whatever those goals are, you just write them down in each area. And then after you write down all your goals in each area, and these are going to be big goals, small goals, doesn't matter. Right? Then the last step is then putting them into then creating your goals for the next year. So saying, all right, these are all my big goals and crazy thoughts. Now how do I pick, what are the 8 or 10 goals across these areas for the next 1 year? And that's what this part of the personal compass called Living Fully dashboard I was showing a moment ago here, which again, we're going to you'll have the opportunity to workshop on later, this here. That's where this comes into play. So by first saying, assessing my life, allowing myself to dream about big goals and so forth, and then say, all right, what can I do this year in 2021, right? And making sure I'm setting goals around each area. So generally, I have one goal around each 8F, and then I may have 2 or 3 or 4 additional. But if I'm crushing it on my faith, I don't need to focus on anything else. It's already a habit. It's a ritual. I'm as connected to the Lord as I could ever be. Then I might not need one about that because I'm crushing it already, right? So you said those are. So my point to that backstory, so I first learned this concept of life assessment actually from Darren Hardy, who wrote a phenomenal book, one of the best books on a lot of what I'm talking about here, called The Compound Effect. It's an old book now, been out maybe 15, 20 years, but still a phenomenal book about building the lifestyle you want, building rituals, routines. So I started doing this activity. It's not as built out as what we do today, but similar, 10 years ago. So when I did the first time, I wasn't doing very well. But then as I started working on it, and I do this still to this day, I go through and I assess my life at least 3 or 4 times a year. And I go through, I just take a new template, and we'll send you the actual template, the document, and I go through and I quickly assess them. I don't look back at my old ones. I just go and say, where am I at right now today, right? And I reevaluate how I'm doing against my goals I set for the year every year. So it's simple discipline. How much time does it take for me to do a life assessment and goal setting? An hour, a few times a year. Set up that Living Fully dashboard. It takes me about an hour to draft it the first time. I usually draft it around October for the next year. And then throughout, I check in on it, every couple of weeks, and then I get to the end of the year, I say, are these my goals for the next year? It doesn't take a lot of time, but all of a sudden, it starts becoming second nature, it starts becoming routine, and you start having, really incredible results in all areas.
I think a lot of the leaders in the room probably have good personal goals and business goals. What you're doing particularly well is, it sounds like checkpointing on those. Is that with your Outlook calendar and seeing it there, or is there another way to organize those daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly checkpoints?
Yeah, great question. So, I do, and we have these documents, again, we'll give to you in the workshop, but we have an example of this ideal schedule here. So the first thing I do, and I just do this in Google Sheets at this point, I constantly go and I look at my overall weekly schedule. I'm constantly making sure, is it up to date? My leaders can tell you they don't love it, that pretty much every quarter I go and tweak the meeting schedule because I realize I need to adjust something. So I do this on a weekly basis, and then I go in and I'll share it out. I go in and I match kind of my bigger goals across the year, and I map out kind of my annual calendar on the stuff that's monthly and so forth, and then I make sure they get onto this Google Sheet, and then from there I put them into Google Calendar. So I build them out here because this is where, if you just do it in Google Calendar, it's hard to kind of see it as a whole, at least for me. So I like seeing it this way, where I can look at it, play with it, adjust it, think about it, make sure it really works, and then I put it into the calendar. So that's the tool we use. Outlook does just the same. But yeah, everything you see here is in my Google Calendar. Plus, of course, there's no actual blank spots. I promise there's not even 10 minutes of blank spots in my real schedule. So everything that doesn't have something already in it, that's what gets filled up with interviews, performance evaluations, meetings with investors, meetings with operators, all the different types of stuff that's not pre-scheduled. But I have certain goals that I have, to have X number of, I've broken out my annual goals to have X number of, meetings with prospective partners a week or a month, and prospective investors, and so I build that time into my schedule so that I make time for those things that are most impactful. So on average, my target is 4, but I average 6 interviews a week, right? Those fill in there. They don't replace anything else that's on there. They fill into the spots that are empty right now.
And we all have to laugh at the gentleman in the back that was expressing that challenge, turning the corner. When I look at this, I can't help but wonder, was there a certain portfolio income or free cash flow that allowed you to properly hire the department heads to free up more time to go back to finalizing that organization, or what was that kind of turning point?
Yeah, it's a great question. No, there's been no singular event. It's just an evolution. So I've never been afraid to hire, I'll say. I'd say at times I haven't spent enough active, focused time to do it fast enough. And every time I've made key hires, I said I should have done this sooner. But I've always been willing to understand that was needed. So it's an evolution. We're hiring every day, right? Every day. We add in our organization roughly 30 people a month. So literally every day we're hiring somebody. And it's been that way for a long time. And we're constantly top grading our leadership team, adding more leaders. Unfortunately, one of the hardest parts of leadership is when you have to top grade somebody in a leadership seat, put somebody else in because that person's not yet capable to get there. A really good book on that topic and others that we're reading as an organization right now is called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. Awesome book on the challenges of growing a company and really obtaining scale. It's a really, really phenomenal book. But great question.
Hi, Don. This is Sanjay from Atlanta. I have probably 2 to 3 questions, each leading into each other. So let me warn you there. Do you have other partners in the business, or is it primarily you?
So I don't have any like core main operating partners. So Bob, our CFO, has ownership in our fund management business, as does Barry, and then we are doing some things to give opportunities of long-term equity to key leaders. But I don't have any operating partners in any of the businesses.
So one of the challenges I think with schedules or personal alignment goals and all that is, how do you figure out a way to drive the company to align all these partners' individual goals and move towards a common goal for the company?
Yeah, I mean, it's this process. So I would say, when you have partners, as an example, even more it's important that you draft that company compass together. You get on the same page with what you want to accomplish together, and then you have the benefit of being able to divide and conquer, right? And by having partners, you have the ability to, when it comes to your personal compass and your personal goals, you might be in a stage of life, and I know you are, right, where you have an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old, right? So for you may have more obligations right now to be home in the evening, right, for those. Maybe one of your partner's kids are grown, and they can do more of the traveling and business development opportunities right now because of their stage of life, and that's what they like to do or they're better at doing. So you have that benefit of kind of working together. So I'd encourage anybody with partners, build your company compass together. And you can do it the other way too, where you can each build your personal compass, and then you come together and say, all right, let's align each of our individual goals with how we grow this business together. And by going through and determining your personal mission and goals, that helps drive the goal of the organization.
Gotcha. Third question, would you recommend doing the personal compass with your spouse?
I think you definitely need to share it with your spouse for sure. So I didn't do my personal compass with my spouse, but I did do my family compass, which we're not training on here this week, and we can send you information on it. But we have a tool called a family compass, which you do with your spouse, for sure.
And you earlier mentioned also add on the kids as they grow up and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
Cool.
And that's a big part of what we cover. What we're doing a whole meeting tomorrow on the prosperity side of running family meetings and establishing these family compasses with your whole family in mind. So it's very similar to running your organization. You need your key leaders a part of driving the direction of the organization. You need your family members a part of the direction of your family.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. But when your wife sees or your husband sees your personal goals, it can be really powerful. They might not fully get it right away, but if your spouse doesn't agree with how you're going to spend your time, you're going to have a hard time doing it, right? So if you can get your spouse or your significant other, whoever, on board with, these are my priorities and these are going to spend my time, and if you take this approach, my guess is for most of you, if you went to your spouse and said, hey, I'm now not just really focused on running my business, but I'm going to put some focus on being a great father and husband and leader of our family and so forth, you're going to get some pretty good feedback from your family and support in helping you achieve those goals.
And Don, how long have you been married?
10 years.
So he's been married 10 years continuously.
Yeah, so, hey, Don, Clayton Getz again from Richmond, Virginia, right here. Yeah, so I think one of the things that's so impressive about this, so we've been doing Darren Hardy's goal setting with our wives individually. We go away for 2 days and we sit down and we map it out. But what's so impressive about this is that not only is your calendar aligned with your personal and professional goals, but what goes on your calendar gets accomplished. So I think for me, and John, I think we're the same way. A lot of things go on my calendar, but they're either replaced or it's just they lose the significance over time. So who is holding you accountable? Is this? I mean, are you really just a machine, or who is Jackie involved with? Is there an accountability piece to this for you?
So I'll first start with saying, I don't. For me, I don't need an accountability partner for these types of things, and some do. I've never needed that type of accountability, but I force it on myself, and maybe that's part of the same answer. So the entire company has access to my personal compass, my goals, my schedule. Everybody can see it at every time. All 400 plus people, so everybody knows it. It's not a mystery to anybody where I'm spending my time, how I'm spending my time, what my goals are, what my priorities are. I use myself as an example regularly, as do many of our leaders. So, I'm accountable in that I'm out here in front of all of you right now telling you what I'm doing. I'm doing the same thing in front of my 430 employees. So unless I want to be a fraud, and I'm okay with that, I'm out here holding myself accountable by sharing what I do. And that's the key to everything that we're going to cover here this weekend, guys, is there's nothing that we do at DLP that isn't exactly what we're going to teach you isn't exactly what we do. And we're glad to tell you we're not doing anything perfectly, but we keep getting better at everything. So, and you're welcome to. That's why we have 55 of our employees here this weekend, right? 55 here this weekend, right? Talk to them. They'll get their perspectives. That's why they're here. They'll tell you, give the transparent feedback. We had no meeting prior to this to prep people what they're allowed to say or what they're not allowed to say, right? Especially after they have a few drinks over dinner, right? You can talk to them about anything and hear exactly what we do. And none of us are perfect at it, and that's why I'm always tweaking it and adjusting it. So there's times where sometimes Monday meetings, right? Certain things come up that take override. It only happens maybe once a quarter where I can't be in Monday meetings because something came up and I had to travel or something. So I'm not perfect at it, but 90% of the time I'm doing it, right? And then who helps me with it is so I do have an assistant. I did not have. So don't think, I don't have an assistant, I can't do this. I did not have a personal assistant until 2 years ago. But I do have a personal assistant now, and I have a chief administrative officer, who's sort of chief of staff, who they help manage my schedule. They read my emails. They filter and get stuff on my schedule. They follow through on it. When stuff overbooks, they work with people to re-coordinate things. So they do manage that, but they don't ever come to me and put something on my meeting when I'm on family time or something. That never happens. So they don't put something on my meeting and say, Don, I figured this was more important than being in this company meeting, so I overrode it. They fit it in when there's time on my schedule to do it. All right, so we are just a few minutes over on time. Do we have another question? So we're a few minutes over, so let's do this. And again, we have workshop time to work on all this stuff in a little bit. But the last thing we're going to cover before lunch is meetings. I promise it's going to be more exciting than meetings sound, but it is really critical to running your life and managing your schedule is how do you manage the communication and priorities in your organization. And effectively running meetings is a big part of how I don't have stuff that overrides my schedule, because I have specific time in my schedule already to tackle all the whirlwind and all the urgent priorities that I don't have to constantly be being distracted. So we'll talk about that next. Let's take 5 minutes. It's 11:11. Let's come back at 11:16, and we'll wrap up here in the last 45 minutes with meetings and then have lunch and a panel over lunch.